when we know that Western companies usually try to be more focused on a single product or not too many of those. On the other hand, when you look at Chinese companies, there are two types again. One, those who are really dedicating, let's say, themselves to do light and the best light they can do, and others that are simply doing everything. And that's fascinating. And I'm always asking myself, where is the money coming from to produce so many components? Because at the end, everything needs its own mold, and it's really like a chain reaction. But yeah, what do we know about this?
What's new in filmmaking technology this week? News, reviews, education, insights, opinions, and ideas from the CineD newsroom with Nino Leitner and Johnny Bahiri. This is Focus Check, the weekly Cinetech podcast.
Hi guys, welcome to our Focus Check, our podcast, CineD podcast, and this is episode number 62. I can't believe how far we've been going with this. And Nino, you're in the Netherlands. How are you?
I'm okay. Here in for private reasons, not so nice reasons, but okay.
Yeah. Well, it's always a bit challenging to do such a podcast when I'm here at the studio and you are somewhere. But on the other hand, it's amazing what can be done with modern technology. It's literally iPhone, computer, microphone, and here we go. So, there's quite a lot to talk about today. And what would you like to start with? Tell me.
I would like to, maybe let's talk about taking care of yourself. I think some people might have seen last week's episode where you made a bit of a special episode.
Too early to define, you know what I mean?
Terms of,
yeah, so I feel that I've been too early with this, meaning there were not so many people watching it, but the one who did.
It's always going to be I thought about this, it's always going to be our fly episode. Breaking Bad, they have this episode with a fly in the studio, and people either love it or hate it. But it's different, and I like that you did something different.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's always nice to hear encouraging words. And just for you guys who are not familiar with what we did and actually what led to me standing in the kitchen and cooking, and Felix, who is right here, filming me with, it was really a very compact setup, but it works. So we ran a poll, every week we're running a poll. And last week we asked fellow filmmakers if they are taking care of themselves. Simple question, no? But the answer is not so easy because we are working in the field. We are investing so much time. And the thing is, in bigger productions, how the production is actually feeding us. I mean, are we eating healthy food? It's the small things like this, but of course, it's the viewfinder in the eye so many hours and carrying stuff with the bag and so on. Nino and I, we both have a dream one day to create let's call it a course about how to protect yourself, to hear from professionals, how to have good advice and so on. But what I found out in this poll, that actually people would like to take care of themselves, but they don't have the time. That's what the poll said, the answers. So I picked up the glove and I wanted to show that it's not so difficult to cook healthy food. And that's what we did. I did last week. And you know what? I presented 3 recipes. I'm very proud of the outcome. I will never be Jamie Oliver, and I'm not intending to be Jamie Oliver. But on the other hand, I wanted to demonstrate and show that, guys, it's very important. And as you get older and you have commitment to your family and to your friends, parents, doesn't matter, kids, you really have to start thinking now about how it's going to be in the future. So that's what I literally did. If you have any questions about the recipe or how we did it, I'm very happy to answer.
I'll try them at home and let you know. No, but I think you make a good point. I think it's when you're young and starting out in this industry as a shooter, you kind of, you don't take it easy. You were like giving 100% also. And it's such a physical job as well.
Mental too, it's very important.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, I think a lot of people, including myself, used to neglect that quite a lot. And you definitely pay the price. I mean, we all know so many camera people in the industry who have severe back problems when they're old. And I think the newer generation, I have to say in general, that has nothing to do with our industry, is better at taking care of their health, I have to say. If you look at people in their 20s, and I think that's getting better, generally speaking. But I think, yeah, physical exercise, of course, is something you just need to do. But yeah, let's move on. I mean, I think this has not been a week of huge announcements, I would say, but I think it's safe to say, Johnny, that we are ahead of some major announcements in the next few weeks. So people have a lot to look forward to that we cannot talk about yet, but the next couple of weeks are going to be very interesting for our industry on various levels. So yeah, while you've been cooking, I've been shooting an MZed course with our dear writer Masha Dekova at our studio for a couple of days, and she put a lot of work in this, and it's actually a series of courses that we're working on that are intended to make you the efficient filmmaker. So basically, we are not kind of interested in talking about AI tools that are meant to replace us. That is nothing we want. We don't want to deal with that. We want to use machine learning aided tools that help us be more efficient, and they are very, very concise courses. The first one is going to be about captions and subtitles, and we're talking about all the major NLEs, also some third-party platforms that are helping with this, and testing them all, going through them, really showing how it works and what the differences are, and how you can be most efficient at generating captions for your videos, both for YouTube, but also, broadcasters. It really doesn't matter. And there are some major differences there also in the quality of the results you're getting, and how to actually optimize that and do it properly. And it doesn't matter if you're working with Premiere, DaVinci,
Final Cut,
even Avid. We talk about all of them, and yeah, we're going through that. And the second course is going to be about masking, also aided with, like we have in DaVinci, we have the magic mask, we have the magnetic mask in Final Cut Pro, and we look at those things and how they actually work and where they can help, especially with color grading. Selective color grading is a huge thing that people don't think about. Like, even if you don't want to do effects or, like have titles in the background of a person, you can do all of that. But it's become very, very easy to just color correct individual things in your image, even if you're a one-man band or in a small production company where you would not consider using rotoscoping because it's just, you don't have the staff or time or skill to do that. And now it's amazing what these tools can do, and we look at them. And then there's also going to be a couple more courses that are coming out. So we're doing a whole series on that, and we're going to try to keep them as up to date as possible constantly. So if there's something new comes out, if a tool gets better, she will record a new lesson. We will add that, we'll talk about it, and she will show how it works.
It's interesting what you're mentioning, especially, I don't want to say fix it in post. We all know this slogan, but it's more, I think, as an old-fashioned cameraman, I really try to do my best to get the best possible image in the field. But obviously, with help of AI, many things can be modified in the image afterwards.
Well, I mean, you can't do captions in the field, and you can't do masking in the field. I mean, we kind of don't really talk about things that are really severely altering your image in that way. That's exactly because we think that we should not fix it in post. We should actually get it right on set as much as possible. But there are things that definitely, you can do a lot more easily than it used to be. And I think a lot of people are not aware of the tools and how easy they are to access right now. There's a real shift happening, and all of this is based on machine learning tools that are now kind of creeping into all the NLE platforms, and it would be such a waste not to use them, because what I see is that a lot of like people that don't even call themselves filmmakers, like creators that are creating social media content, they seem to be much more
advanced,
attentive to those new tools coming, because many of them kind of come to, like the mobile version of CapCut and stuff like that. And they don't even, and then you have more traditional filmmakers that don't even know that such things can now be done by anybody. It's really, really easy. I mean, there is no way why you shouldn't, like salvage an underexposed person in the foreground with a magic mask, for example, because it's become very, very easy to do that.
Okay, so it's basically, of course, we're not talking about replacing us when it comes to AI, but how to aid, how to help us to do the job.
It's just about efficiency and increasing efficiency and productivity, basically. I mean, we all try to think of ourselves as artists. We all know that, but the reality is a lot of us need to shoot videos to pay the bills, and a lot of those things are probably corporate videos or commercials or stuff like that. And while of course we all try to be as artsy as possible, they also need to be efficient. Like if you have to go through a lot of content and produce a lot of content, and we know that more and more is being asked of individual shooters or small crews, then you better use those tools, because then you can be more efficient, more productive without sacrificing your creativity.
Great. So that will be under our MZed educational platform. And we're expecting 3 courses, you said? And those courses will be updated.
We'll start with 3 courses. And we're aiming to release them on a monthly basis, probably with the first one in around a month from now. And then on a monthly basis, there will be a new one. So if you're a subscriber to MZed, you will have access to the newest and latest course at all times. And you will also always get, of course, a notification if there's an update to that course with new content added. So you are still ahead of the curve in terms of that technology for that particular problem you're solving, like captions, subtitles, or masking, or the other stuff we're working on.
Great. Looking forward to see the outcome of those courses, because both you and Masha, I know you dedicated quite a lot of time to do something meaningful for fellow filmmakers. Okay, Nino, let's move forward and talk a little bit about reviews. I guess that's what we like to do most. And let's start with I hope I pronounce it correctly, Yongnuo YNLUX 300 RGB. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly.
I think Yongnuo should be right.
Yongnuo. It's a bit challenging. We have a lot of respect for the companies in general in China. And of course, they have established names, but sometimes it's not so easy to pronounce. So our colleague Graham in the US, usually he's conducting our light reviews, did a very nice review of this new fixture. It's a 300 RGB COB light. And, it's becoming more and more almost like a standard to have a 300 watt light. And so many companies are making it, from Amaranth to Nandlight and so many others. So of course, what we try to do together with Graham to find what is really what this light is doing best. So first of all, I have to say that I was like Graham, pleasantly surprised. The price for this light is $450, and again we see. How can I say the competition is not only on the light quality, but also, of course, on the price. And I really wonder if at some point there will be a point that you can't go lower anymore. So obviously you get quite a lot for the price. And one of the things that you do get is a very nice carrying case. It's not too heavy, but it's really protective. And then when it comes to the light itself, there is like a kit. You could see that the engineers at the company were really thinking about small details, from light quality all the way to be able to hang the battery for this fixture. One of the things that it have the plus and minus green and magenta, which is extremely important, especially when you're doing interviews and you want to get rid of some of the green or magenta stuff. So that's very helpful feature, and of course it can have it. You can add an assortment of accessories from the company too. When it comes to the light quality itself, Graham made a lot of measurements. Daylight is okay. I mean, it's almost up to the 5600. I have it somewhere here. 1 second. The measurement was 3,336, but the the tungsten or the indoor lighting is a bit more accurate. So all in all, the light quality is good for the price. So what else? I mean, you have a good light quality, you have a great price of $450 US. You have a lot of accessories that can be attached to it. And where it falls a little bit short is mostly the app. And when at the time of testing, which was about a month ago, that's when we tested the light itself, the app was mostly in Chinese. So hopefully that can be changed soon. And of course, this they don't expect in this price any DMX complex controlling or complex other wireless of controlling. There is an app, but I think for the price, this is fine to have. I guess that for that type of light, for the independent filmmaker, small setup, small studio, that can work quite well. Good, Nino, anything to say about this light? Anything that you want to add?
No, I think it's just nice that we see more competition in this area of 300 watt lights. I think it's become one of those kind of standard lights that people use as their key light for interviews. It doesn't matter from kind of which manufacturer, but as Graham outlined, there are solutions from all the major manufacturers now for quite a good price. And this just adds one more, which is great, of course, because it's gonna, put some pressure on everybody who's already in this market, which is always good for us, the filmmakers, to get better tools get better prices.
Just one word about the company, because some of you might not be aware, but Yongnuo is actually making lenses, and they're making even cameras, Micro Four Third cameras. They're making sound. They're making quite a lot of devices here. And they're quite established in China also. Just this is in case that you're not aware of the company.
Shall we move on to another review?
Yeah.
The K&F Concept V-mount batteries.
That's right. So K&F is another Chinese company, and they are making a lot of stuff. It almost looks as if the general concept of many Chinese companies is to make a variety of stuff. And once I asked why is that, and the answer was very simple. There will always be audience to buy some stuff, and if you look at the general market in China and the rest of the world, there are a lot of people, and eventually somebody will buy something. But K&F concept, the last time that we tested one of the products was a mini matte box. I think it was $99 or something, which for the price it offered a lot, and that looks as if that's what the company is really specializing, offering quite a lot for the price. And this time they send us two batteries. One is 50 watts hour and the other one is 99. Both of them are travel safe, meaning you can take any of those batteries to the airplane together with you. And they do have small features from a LED light and so on, which is very maybe useful if you lost your key, or I'm joking, or if you just have to find something. But the main thing is, and me personally, I really like the first of all the price point, because it's very modestly priced. The V50 is about $99, and the more expensive one, the V99 Pro, is $119. We will talk about the pricing in a second and what challenges it brings to other manufacturers. But the nice thing with the stronger battery, that you can literally power with one of the USB-C connectors. You can connect it to your laptop, and you can power your, let's say, MacBook Pro, for example. This is essential for us when we travel so much. Most of the time economy class, and if this is a long flight, for example, and the capacity of the internal battery of the laptop is of course limited, you always know that you can still have at least one cycle of powering your laptop with such a battery. So this is something that I really like, and it's a very welcomed feature.
Also, if I can just add that I think it's still unfortunately not standard in the industry to put USB-C ports on those batteries. We have so many that still have USB-A ports. It's just so nice to see that they are putting USB-C on that. I think I've had this problem before, where I exactly wanted to do what you're saying, like charge a laptop while on the go, and then I didn't have the right adapter or whatever, and I wasn't even able to connect it to the laptop because the battery only had USB-A. And I'm not talking about older batteries. I mean, I'm literally talking about batteries that have been released within the last 1 or 2 years. And yeah, I just think it should be standard to have actually both options on a battery, or at least USB-C, and the other one you can adapt to.
So here you have a DTAP, which is a standard. By the way, it's a V-mount battery is that we are talking about, yeah. You have the DTAP, you have the USB-C Type A and USB-C USB Type-C. And when I talked about the price, because we also talked with some international manufacturers, and of course, this type of aggressive pricing is always putting some pressure on others, like how to price your products and aim it to those that really need it. What can I say? I don't recall such an aggressive pricing on batteries, and of course, we really want to see what it means if you are using those batteries for a longer period of time, if there's something that you have to compromise because of the pricing. Two things that we did see. First of all, there's like a rubber lid protecting the in and out connectors, and that kind of ripped off quite quickly. And the other thing is that the front panel is very nice, but it's very easy to scratch it. We saw that we just took the batteries with us to NAB to work with them a little bit and see how they work in the field, and it came back a little bit scratched. But in terms of functionality, they worked quite good. And one of the things that those batteries have, which maybe in this price range you usually don't expect, is the BMS, what we call a battery management system. And that means that you can get a lot of information when you connect a product that needs the power. You can monitor the battery health. You can see the status of the cells inside and so on, like how healthy they are, state of charge, state of health, general communication, and so on. So it's nice to see that even in such a modestly priced batteries, you have something like this. But if you're in the market for buying batteries, I think it's worth looking at those, and that might be something that you need. Usually V-mount batteries are more expensive.
I just want to add that I think we've seen in the past that from long-term experience with V-mount batteries or batteries in general, that the cells inside those batteries are, you can't even tell. If you buy a super expensive battery, it might die just as soon as a cheaper one. I had the experience with some very expensive V-mounts in the past that didn't last as long as some less expensive ones, not all of them. And it's because it's always impossible to tell what cells they use. And there's a very small numbers, to my knowledge, of company that actually make those cells inside those batteries, and then almost never made by the company that has the sticker on the product. So it's usually something they need to buy. For example, Panasonic is a huge battery manufacturer, and many other companies, not so many actually. And you can't tell if it really, you cannot say now if this is gonna last for a very long time or it won't. And again, it's nothing to do, in my experience, my personal experience, with how much you pay for a battery. So yeah, good. But overall, again, I encourage people just to check the article and see if that's what they're looking for. That's another thing, that a phenomenon that we're seeing with so many, mostly Chinese companies, that they're making from tripods to batteries, bags in the middle, and anything in between. It's quite amazing. Yeah. Well, I think I spoke to one, as you know, who a manufacturer at NAB. And they told me, and we asked them, why are they now also making something else, which is not part of their core business? And he told me there's two reasons. First of all, they kind of, like a lot of the Chinese companies now, competing with each other. And I think and the other thing he said is, if somebody buys a, let's say, cage from one company, they are much more likely to also buy something else from that same company if they were happy with that purchase, even though another company might have been in the business of the other thing for a longer time. I'm trying to be as diplomatic as possible here without naming any names, but basically, so if one company is mostly a, like rigging company, and the other one is mostly a battery company, the rigging company might go into batteries, and the the battery company might go into rigging, and then they're literally cannibalizing each other. So they kind of feel forced very often to go into different markets. And that's why I think they're spreading out as they do. And they have the manufacturing in their backyard. I mean, even if we talk about Western companies, we all know that most of the stuff we buy, it doesn't even matter where the company is based. China is just amazing at manufacturing, and it's very hard to compete with them. So even the Western companies will have to produce there, which means the Chinese companies have bigger margins because they can have it in their backyard, and it's probably easier for them to make the connections, of course, even if they don't produce something in-house. But yeah, I think that's part of the explanation why everybody tries to do not everything, but a lot of things. But of course, I don't think it's always a great idea because you can't be great at everything. On the other hand, it's kind of a state of the industry thing, right? Where it's a very saturated market in all of those categories. And I think people are just trying to differentiate to, just make as many bets as possible because one or two might stick and they might become market leader. Who knows?
Yeah, I think it's in general, the strategy is very different, but it's fascinating. I think it's Western companies versus, let's say, China. When we know that Western companies usually try to be more focused on a single product or not too many of those. On the other hand, when you look at Chinese companies, there are two types again. One, those who are really dedicating, let's say, themselves to do light and the best light they can do, and others that are simply doing everything. And that's fascinating. And I'm always asking myself, where is the money coming from to produce so many components? Because at the end, everything needs its own mold, and it's really like a chain reaction. But yeah, what do we know about this? Okay.
You can always speculate.
Yeah. I mean, we'll try to move from the speculation more into the real answers, because I think sooner or later we will, of course, ask the companies how they do this. It's just interesting.
We'll be back after this message from our sponsor.
1 Minute Tips by Fujifilm and CineD. This one is part of our series on film set roles. Let's talk about the director. The director is the creative lead on set, the person responsible for shaping the vision of the film. They guide the story and overall tone from pre-production through post. The director works with all of the department heads to guide the vision, but most importantly, they work closest with actors and are responsible for the performance delivered on screen. A director doesn't necessarily have to be experienced in all the roles on set, though it certainly does help, but they do need to know good communication and leadership skills and how to inspire the team, give clear direction, and make decisions under pressure. Directing isn't always about knowing the answers, but confidently knowing the vision and being able to problem solve creatively to bring the story to life under practical constraints of schedule and budget are essential to success. Stay tuned for more film role breakdowns. 1 Minute Tips. Until next time.
And now back to the show.
Should we move on to the Sony
Sure.
a7S III
Let's
firmware
move to the
update?
Sony a7S III. And if you remember this, how old is this camera now, Nino? You remember?
It's becoming 5 years old, so it's really a dinosaur in terms of cameras. I mean, it's still one of the main cameras I like to use as a B camera mostly, and it's the camera I always use on a gimbal. And I understand why a lot of people just love it. I mean, if you think back, the a7S series in general was what really launched Sony into the mirrorless space. The original a7S was the first full-frame 4K capable dual native ISO camera that Sony had, with this incredible low noise at a high ISO. I don't remember what it was at the original one, but now it's 800 ISO and 12,800 ISO, and you get the cleanest results from that. And they originally marketed this as their video mirrorless camera up until the point where they introduced, of course, the FX3, which is kind of the same guts of this camera. It uses the same sensor, same processor, same everything, just a more rugged housing, and which is, better to mount stuff on and so on. And it doesn't have a viewfinder. And a lot of people don't seem to mind. So the FX3 has become extremely, extremely popular. It's probably their most popular full frame camera, as far as I'm aware, in the video field. And the a7S III yeah, as we said, it's now 5 years old, and it's kind of amazing that it still gets firmware updates. I mean, honestly, this is huge credit to Sony for this. I mean, this is not the case for all of their cameras. I can only lament again about my FX9, which was a lot more money and didn't get nearly as much love, and now is actually discontinued. Can you believe it? So they don't make it anymore. But the A7S III, being a much more popular camera, still gets some love. And you might wonder what it is. What can you still add after all this time? Well, first of all, I want to get this right out of the way. It still doesn't have shutter angle, which is so strange for me. I don't understand why a camera that is video focused, and it doesn't matter if it's the A7S III or the FX3, doesn't have shutter angle. I think the FX3 got it. I might be mistaken, but this one still doesn't have it. And it would be so easy, if I just dial in 180-degree shutter, then it doesn't matter if I change my frame rates and so on, and it's always going to be the right kind of motion. But
I have to contradict you. There is nothing easy when it comes to developing those things. It's the same that you will ask yourself why you can't squeeze.
Come on.
No, it's complicated. I don't want to be advocate here for the companies.
I'm not saying it's not complicated, but people still want it, and it's been. I remember being at the Sony Future Filmmaker Awards 3 years ago in LA, and they sat us down with the developers of all those cameras, and they asked us, what do we want? And the number one thing that came from everybody was shutter angle. So I don't know. Anyway, so the version 4 firmware that was just released is, by the way, I don't recommend changing firmware in the middle of a project. I know this was released last week or something. We didn't update our camera at the office yet because I had a shoot or 2 shoots, including that course, and we didn't want to risk anything. But we'll do the update.
Well, here you're also losing some features.
Sorry?
If you do the update, you are losing some features here, and I think people should know that. For example, the S-Log 2 will go.
That's important actually. We can mention this right at the beginning. Is you are losing S-Log 2, so this camera will only shoot S-Log 3. Now, we have a lot of other cameras from Sony that have been released over the last 5 years or so that don't shoot S-Log 2 anymore, for example, FX6, FX9, and so on. And that is because they say that the sensor is not actually, it just delivers more dynamic range, and it wouldn't do justice to that. But for some strange reason, they're taking it out of this camera. So if you're relying on S-Log 2 workflow, and you might rely on it if you combine the A7S III with an older camera like an FS7 or another mirrorless camera that only shoots S-Log 2, hold off with that update. It's not, none of the things that are being added are absolutely essential. You might lose more than what you gain. But what you do gain is that now you can load custom LUTs into the camera, which is quite cool. I mean, this is something that has bugged me for a while. I'm not a big fan of the view assist function. It's kind of this preview LUT that Sony has built into that camera, because it's always giving you a bit of a wrong impression of how much dynamic range you have.
Really? It's not a Rec 709, basically?
It's a Rec 709. Yeah, but it's, I don't think it's doing a good job at actually, displaying specifically highlights. I feel like if I use that LUT, I tend to underexpose, and we all know that these cameras do better, Sony cameras in general, if you give it a little bit more, you overexpose them a little bit, because you can get rid of a lot of noise, and there is more latitude usually in the highlights anyway. So if you move it up a little bit, but if you use the preview LUT, you will underexpose, because that's simply, it just looks
too bright, I guess. That's why you are
bright,
under.
yeah.
Okay.
So I'm not a big fan of using this. So what I do, I use an external monitor and show a custom preview LUT on that. But now you can have custom LUTs. I'm going to definitely try this out because that's extremely useful. There's a couple other things that have been added. For example, you can add OK, not good, or keep flags to clips during or even after recording, which is quite useful, of course. Like if you don't have a script person taking notes, or you just want to say in camera, this has been a good take, it's very convenient to have that function. And that's also something that you have in a lot of their other cameras already. there's a couple things you can now, like there's been a few changes to the custom buttons. You can use the custom key setting on the AEL button and the delete button during playback now. You can also now, which actually that's something I only realized when I was reading this, that it wasn't my mistake. Apparently you weren't able to use focus magnifier or auto magnifier in manual focus, like if you're manually focusing and then pushing in, when using the bright monitoring feature. And I swear to you, I've had this issue so many times and I didn't understand why. Now I know it wasn't actually possible. So the photos magnifier didn't work when you set the screen to, I think it's called sunny weather or whatever. Weird, but now it works. So good to know. There's also been a couple updates to the Creators Cloud Creators app, I think it's called now, which is great because now it allows you to schedule FTP transfers while still writing data to the camera's internal storage media. Not internal, but to the camera's storage media. And you can also continue shooting while you are transferring photos or videos to your smartphone or tablet. And this is great because it's kind of always taking you out of the whole thing. And this might be, I think photographers love this feature on their cameras. And of course, I mean, this is not predominantly a photo camera because of the relatively low megapixel resolution of the camera. But for, like video shooters working in a studio, this is also very, very useful to already be able to transfer footage as you are shooting in the studio. And it's one of those things actually that would add a lot of efficiency to your shooting, I'm sure, if you have a quick turnaround. There's a couple enhancements to network streaming and so on. And a lot of the enhancement has to do with network and connectivity enhancements, which is nice to see because I think it's really a sign of the times that now we have really cameras that are, not just sitting by themselves. We know that many of them are now camera to cloud capable and also just networkable in many different ways, whether you want to use them just as a webcam or just upload proxies or control them remotely. Sony's remote control app is amazing now. It's really, really good. You can have multiple cameras on one screen. You can do multicam from an iPad, for example. So this is, they've done a lot of great work there. They can also combine their cameras. So anyway,
the amazing thing, that this camera, right now it's being offered by at B&H with like $300 discount, but the price for the camera is still $3,200 US. I mean, it's such a 5 years ago we said it was announced first, and it's amazing that it keeps such a, I don't want to say value because not a value, just that's a retail price, but it's amazing how much they're still selling it for.
Exactly, but it's a good sign of how popular it is, right? You wouldn't sell it at that price if it wouldn't sell. And if you compare that to, for example, I don't know, the original Red Komodo that is now also 3,000. It's kind of, it's a sign of, like it really depends on what camera model you're invest. And it's a bit of a lucky guess also at the beginning. I mean, of course, you look at the specs, you look what works.
Yeah.
And Sony just has managed to really get a good hold of the market here.
Great.
Good.
Okay. I think we can move on
to, I want to talk about quickly, maybe you can show the video as I'm talking about the Insta360 X5 camera. So that is their new flagship small 360 camera. Now, what's interesting and what amazes me about this company is how well they have managed to really gain a following over the last couple of years. I mean, I remember the times when they came out originally, everybody was a bit like, who is this obscure company only focusing on 360 cameras? And all knowing that these typical 360 things in the past have always been kind of a fad. I mean, we even had GoPro with our Max camera and that hadn't been updated in 5 years, and now they gave it like a bit of a software kind of update. It's not really a new hardware, but Insta360 at the same time has been really successful, releasing camera after camera after camera doing 360-degree video, and then also went into the action cam market doing kind of normal action cam, which has also become very popular. And the interesting thing to me is that now hardly anyone watches 360-degree video as 360-degree video. They have realized, and they've been the best at that you will actually finish your video in a normal 16:9. And that means you need to have an amazing app that allows you to edit the footage that you're shooting with it, because you can pan and scan around your 360-degree image. And that works remarkably well. I mean, their app has always been great. And now they have brought out a new version of their camera. And finally, it has a larger sensor, so that they are touting it as a camera that is much better in low light now, which is good because it hadn't been good in low light before. The demo video looks amazing. I have to say, of course, it's a demo video, but still the footage you see there is very, very impressive. And they added a lot of other stuff. For example, for users, it's really great that you now can replace the lenses by yourself. This has been a huge pain. I mean, I have one of the, like an Insta360 Pro 2, which with like 6 cameras around, and it's very hard. There's like a little, I would say like a wristband that you put on top of like a headband actually, that you put on top of the camera, so it doesn't actually scratch the lenses, because it's so easy to kind of tilt it to the side. And as soon as one of those lenses touches the ground or a desk, it will have a scratch. And it's the same with the small cameras like the Insta360 X and now the X5, which of course you can't put on a table because the lenses are protruding on both sides. So you have to put some kind of protector on it. And as soon as you had it scratched, you were not able to replace it by yourself. So now they made it user-replaceable. You can change those lenses by yourself. I don't know how expensive that is, but I think it seems to be quite simple, and that's very nice to see. It's still waterproof, which is great. And you have relatively large screen. I don't know if it's bigger than on the X4. I don't recall, but because that one was already quite big. They did a great job, I think. I mean, we haven't tested this, of course, but they also call it AI editing functions. So now the app will record 2 streams. So they call it InstaFrame. It will record 2 versions of the video simultaneously. So you will have a standard 360-degree video that you can edit later in their Insta360 Studio app, which has also been updated, and a flat auto-framed version that's kind of ready to share unedited. And then you can also have in the app is like an AI editing function that will focus on the most important things happening on in the frame. We've seen, we've talked about automatic editing and podcast editing apps and stuff like that before. And this one will, if something's happening in the frame, it will automatically kind of move it over to another person that's entering or coming closer to the camera or something like that. Very curious how that will work, because of course for the end user that's quite useful. So you don't actually need to go through the relatively cumbersome step to edit 360 video on a phone. While the app is great, it's still a bit cumbersome to do in general, and just interesting to see that they added some AI functions here. I don't know if you see this, Johnny, on the there's a screenshot in our article where you see the 3 different perspectives or 4 different perspectives that it can actually show, and then kind of like change in between. Battery life is better. That's great to hear, because that's something that's sometimes neglected by action cam manufacturers. Seems to be running, I didn't mention even it's 8K 60 or 5K.
No, I think 8K.
5.7K 24. Yeah. And sorry.
Yeah. No. Maybe when you hold the camera with a stick, how do you hide the stick?
No, what this is, they've had this for a long time. The stick is automatically erased from the footage. So it looks like...
This always looked to me so... I like this feature. You're holding the camera, but there is no stick. This was just
it's really great, because it kind of, if you position it right, like let's say you're on a water slide or on a bike or whatever, you can literally get shots that are almost impossible to do otherwise, because with a drone you couldn't fly that close. and with another camera you like couldn't mount it in the air. Like if you position that stick in a smart way, it literally looks like the impossible shot. And that's, I think, what they really have done a great job at. Is I think they were the first ones to come up with this kind of erase that pole. Yeah. So the X5 360 8K is now out for $550, and yeah, I mean, again, I think it's a sign of the times where we see almost like, like brands like GoPro seem to be declining with, not having so many great hardware updates lately. And you have brands like Insta360 and DJI, both of them Chinese brands, really pushing hard in the action cam market. I mean, DJI doesn't have 360 cameras, but they also have a normal action camera like Insta360. So GoPro has gotten a lot more competition over the last few years from those two companies, and they seem to be very popular. Just look at their social media channels.
Yeah. Good. Moving forward, Sony released a new zoom lens, the FE50 to 150mm f2 GM. Anything that you want to add about this? You're using Sony a bit more than me. So it looks very compact.
Yeah, it's just an amazing feat of engineering that is possible to have an f2 lens all the way through to 150mm in a zoom lens. Don't forget that one stop more of aperture means one stop more of light means twice as bright, kind of like twice the amount of light entering the lens compared to an f2.8. So it is a huge difference. And also, I mean, shallow depth of field is not a concern on a long telephoto lens because you will always have razor thin shallow depth of field. And so this is actually probably not great to have, like if you have to focus manually. But those lenses from Sony, the G Masters, are amazing at autofocusing. Yeah, I mean, we know the 7200, the latest one is incredible to do focus tracking of faces. It's the impossible shot of somebody walking towards a camera at 200mm or even less, and it's spot on at f2.8. It's impossible to pull that kind of focus manually, especially with these lenses. I mean, unfortunately, like every manufacturer calls their lenses now hybrid lenses. The thing is, as long as you don't have hard stops at the ends, like for focusing, I always have a hard time calling them hybrid lenses. Canon has been doing this a lot too. Of course, they work well for video, but as soon as you have to manually focus, it's still extremely hard, and there is still such a huge space for proper cinema lenses. We've only seen very, very few autofocus capable lenses with proper cine gear, like cinema gear. And that is the Sigma that is now coming out, the Sigma zoom lens. And that's it, kind of. I mean, there's not many out there yet, and I hope that will change. But back to this lens, yeah, seems like a very capable lens.
I like the size. I really like the size of it, and I really like that the focal length that they chose, the 50-150. I think it's very good. It's really
that's true
overlapping with whatever wider lens that you want to have. So basically, with two lenses you're in your kit, you're able to do quite amazing stuff.
I think it's a perfect B-roll lens for video, because very often I'm at least running into the issue that when using a 70-200, that 70 is already a bit too long. And also the minimum focus distance of 70 is usually like 85 centimeters at the minimum. And I don't actually know what the minimum focus.
It's in the video.
It's 0.4 meters. So that's great. Like 40 centimeters. That's really good at the wide end, and 0.74 meters at the telephoto end. So that's really, really useful. So yeah, that could be like your standard B-roll lens in a way. Yeah.
Good.
And it's in the market now. I think it's coming out. It's like just below $4,000.
Yeah,
it's not a cheap lens, but it's capable.
Not a cheap lens. Yeah. It's 3,800. And it will come May 22nd, apparently.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Shall we move on to DZOfilm?
Yeah. So talking about lenses, DZOfilm, very respected company, doing a lot for filmmakers when it comes to a variety of lenses. So we all know the Vespid, which is prime lenses, which are quite popular. And now for a limited time offer, those lenses will start at $799, like 800. And the kit itself, I mean, they have let me first concentrate on those lenses that will be on 799. So the 21, 25, 35, 40, 50, 70, 75, 100, and 125 millimeter will cost $799. And then you have the 16 millimeter, which will be $999, and 90 millimeter, $899. And the most expensive one, which also makes sense, is the 12 millimeter, which will still be $1,199. That will be a limited time offer. We don't have the end date, only but it's starting since the 29th of April, which is yesterday. And of course, you can buy those as a set, 5, 7, or 9 lenses, and depending on the focal length that you want, it will start at $3,999 and all the way up to $6,999. But it's a very comprehensive sets, of course, if you buy it. And I think if you look around, there are quite a lot of reviews of those lenses, and it seems like people really like them. And they were introduced 2020, so it's already 5 years ago. So, some like some of the lenses were already introduced in 2020. Others, like the 12 millimeter, was introduced in 2023. 1 second. There's also a little video which I forgot to show in the background. Now, guys, you can see this showing some of the features of the lenses. So it's more like a 5 years anniversary for those ones. One thing that I have to say, because I think it's like now the second or third video that we are watching from Chinese manufacturers. It's amazing how the image videos that they're producing it became quite nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. You wanna mention the Godox, the big new Godox light?
Yeah. We know Godox, and we know the KNOWLED series of fixtures that they have. For those who are not aware, Godox is a huge name in Asia, and I think doing quite well also in the Western world. But in Asia, they are very powerful. They're really, really big. And now they're coming with something that's supposed to replace 6 kilowatt HMI, and this is the new MG6K. This is a high power LED light. It's 4,300 watts of power. Of course, it seems like together with YNLUX and Aperture and so on, those companies are really trying to compete on the higher end of the market. This is not for the independent filmmaker. That means also that those lights are really expensive, like in independent filmmaking standards. Yeah, so this light will come how much? $11,650 US dollars. Yeah, expensive. But on the
Made
other
for
hand,
rental.
sorry, it's a rental.
Really made for rental. Yeah.
That's right. But it seems they really try to design it that it's as lightweight as possible. And when I say lightweight, it's 24 kilos, 24.5 kilos. That's the head itself. Then you add the yoke, and it becomes 28 kilos. And if you have the whole thing, it can become I think up to 41 kilo in general. So, but it's still very compact, yeah. And just to think that just a few years ago you were not able to get such an output from LED lights, it's quite amazing. And of course, you can expect everything from an app and DMX control, Ethernet, Bluetooth, and so on. And this is also IP50 forwarder protection, yeah. So and flicker free. More about this light, if you are a rental house or anybody who is doing big productions, of course, you can get much more information in our news article.
Cool. 2 more things. DaVinci Resolve 20 Beta 2 and RAW Converter app update. Let me start with DaVinci.
Okay.
We've done a very nice interview at NAB about DaVinci Resolve 20 with Simon Hall, who's kind of their super expert editor on all things DaVinci Resolve. We know Simon quite well. He actually gave us kind of a workshop a couple of years ago of kind of learning DaVinci Resolve for a couple of days. That was really, really cool. And now they released the 20 version. If you haven't seen that video on our channel, it's in the article, also embedded for the DaVinci Resolve 20 Beta 2 article. We also have the video from NEB embedded. It's really worth watching what the new features will bring, because as I mentioned in the beginning, that a lot of companies are now really moving into AI aided functions, and I think they're kind of catching up with Adobe in a lot of respects. They are adding things that you can already do in Premiere, are also coming to DaVinci, but also more, and some very, very smart things. And they are also enhancing the Magic Mask version 2 is now in the current one, which is also one of the tools we cover in DaVinci 20 in the course that I was talking about, the Efficient Filmmaker course. Part 2 actually. So, but what's new in the beta update of DaVinci Resolve 20? Well, first of all, I mean, we always see the same scheme from the Blackmagic Design. They kind of announce a new version of DaVinci Resolve around NAB or during NAB time, and then they keep pushing a lot of beta updates until the final version, which is usually released in September, around September. So there's only been a few exceptions to that over the last couple of years, but usually they are trying almost to do an annual major update to their software. And at that, I think they have been adding a lot more features than their competitors in the same time frame. And the two things that they fixed in the beta version are kind of enhanced. First of all, you now have speed keyframe improvements. So now it's possible to adjust speed keyframes directly in the viewer. So when you're making changes in the keyframe editor, you are seeing them in real time, and it takes a little bit of the guesswork out of your timing. And because if you're working with variable speed changes, of course, it can save you a lot of time. You don't have to go back and forth all the time between the different pages. So that makes a lot of sense. Then also there's been some voiceover recording fixes. The update ensures that recordings follow track selection correctly, even when track effects are applied. There has been a bug there, I guess, and also monitoring is more reliable. If other tracks are set to solo or ARM, you're still able to monitor voiceovers correctly. I mean, they added this voiceover recording function, which is quite useful, of course, to have it in-app already. Yeah, also a couple other things that have been enhanced, but if you are already on the beta version, that always makes sense to do this update. I do not recommend using the beta version for any paid work. Try to install that in a separate user account on your Mac or Windows computer. I think you're not able to kind of install both of them at the same time. I'm not sure though, but it definitely makes sense for these kind of experiments. I like to have a separate user admin account that has the beta version kind of contained in a sandbox, so it cannot interfere with DaVinci Resolve 19, which needs to do the paid work, right? So yeah, that's out now, and you can download it from the website. And last but not least, and this is also related to DaVinci Resolve, there has been an update to RAW Converter. This is the app that converts ProRes RAW into CinemaDNG. And now there is an iOS version. And if you don't know or haven't heard yet, ProRes RAW is still not available in DaVinci Resolve. If you have a camera or a recorder that is shooting ProRes RAW, you kind of need to go through Final Cut Pro, which of course is not so popular when it comes to professional editing. So you need to kind of get that footage into DaVinci Resolve if you're working with DaVinci, and that app converts it into CinemaDNG. Now, this has really been launched, 4 years ago, a long time ago, and it gives you the ability to batch convert ProRes RAW files or also ProRes HQ files, including audio, into CinemaDNG. either uncompressed 3:1, 5:1, or a 7:1 compression ratio. And this new version has faster transcoding, which is much appreciated. It has a new CinemaDNG 4:1 compression option. It has a proxy workflow support, so you can now generate CinemaDNG files at half or a quarter the resolution. It has an offline mode. It supports 32-bit float audio and also newer camera models. I mean, they have a full list of new cameras on their website, but also in our article. So yeah, it's nice to see that this app still gets a lot of love, because we don't get a lot of love when it comes to ProRes RAW, native ProRes RAW support in DaVinci. So this is really great to have. And let me check. Yeah, it's still free. Just for full functionality, you need to purchase a full license, and the free version can only convert 300 frames of footage, so it's just for testing, but at least you can test it fully featured. The paid license for unlimited conversion costs between $75 and $80 per camera, so you need to select the camera you're using.
Good. I see that we covered quite a lot in a short amount of time. Nino, I will let you go back to your business, and I will jump on some other stuff that we have to do here at the office and continue to feed the beast. It's always about content, and there's much more to come. Nino, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, Johnny. And everyone, don't forget to subscribe to all our podcast services. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Give us a like. Share the episode with a friend. Tell them to give a great reply, like a great rating. It always helps with getting new viewers and listeners. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. See you next time.